So back to the Port Chicago trial. As important as it was, the exact location, very sadly, was never recorded. So while we were working with our partners on the Hilltop Park display, we continued to try to determine the exact trial site. So Professor Allen's definitive book on Port Chicago said that the trial was held in a small wooden building that had once been a Marine barracks. Now, 3 years ago, this was all anyone knew. And we couldn't find Professor Allen's source for that statement. We went through, we being myself and Professor Javier Arbona at UC Davis, who collaborated with me on this. We searched all of the notes, the interview transcripts, and Professor Allen's source material, and the trial transcripts, all of which were digitized by Kelly's Port Chicago Memorial Unit and made available, and we couldn't find the source. Now, Professor Allen obviously is hugely credible, so this is a big clue, but it's not yet evidence. This is one of the only 2 known photographs of the trial. And it says in the caption, the trial was held on Yerba Buena Island. So what we hoped to do was to find 1 or more candidate buildings that could have held the trial, locate the building plans, and try to match up the doors and windows and elements of the room with the building plans. So the caption, as I said the trial was on Yerba Buena Island. Every story in the press used the exact same words, and one might suspect, since it was wartime and the Navy was secretive, that that was all they told the press that they were allowed to say. Well, with one exception. People's World was a Marxist newspaper that was then based in San Francisco, and maybe they were less inclined to follow the Navy's instructions. For whatever reason, they used the phrase, the General Court Martial Building. And this is a very specific term and gives us something to look for. How do we find a General Court Martial building that had probably been a Marine barracks? Well, this reference book was written in 1995 by the base relocation and closing people as part of the preparation to shut down Naval Station Treasure Island. It lists some 900 plus buildings that were on Treasure and Yerba Buena Islands from 1881 through 1995. And the only building in the book that mentions court martials, it also mentions barracks as a use, is Building 97 on Yerba Buena Island. It was built in 1920, demolished in 1960. So we had a few other candidates that were barracks or Marine barracks, but this was our main candidate. So now we hope to find plans for the building to compare with the photo. So one of our museum board members, Admiral Tom Andrews, reached out to NHHC, the Naval History and Heritage Command, and they provided us with this information about Building 97. It was built in 1920, and an addition was built in 1943. So we went looking for the plans for the building, and NHHC said that if they existed at all, they were in NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration in College Park, Maryland. And we contacted an archivist there, Ryan McPherson, who could tell us exactly what file to go look in. And in early 2021, as we were preparing to have somebody go take a look, everything closed due to COVID, and we couldn't get at the file. So that was a year of nothing. And this past February, our archivist friend Ryan McPherson, who didn't have any visitors to contend with, offered to go down and take a look at the file. He did not find the original building plans from 1920, and HHC is adamant that they must have been destroyed. But he did find some plans from the 1943 building extension. And on February 9th, he emailed those to us along with the detailed 1940 map of Yerba Buena Island. That's the background of these slides. Now, we noticed that part of the extension was a new dormitory for 130 men. And this kind of raised a question because Professor Allen said the trial building was no longer a barracks. And does it make any sense that the Navy would build this brand spanking new addition in 1943 and then abandon it less than a year later? Well, this naval history of Treasure Island, which was written by the Navy, said that in the summer of 1944, the Marine barracks were consolidated on Treasure Island. So if there were Marines up in that dormitory room, they would have been moved down to Treasure Island, and the barracks would have been conveniently vacant for the trial that started a few months later on September 14th. So the good news is that we found a room on the plans labeled General Court Martial Room. So this is hugely exciting. The bad news is that this was part of the original 1920 construction. So although the plans for the other added rooms were very detailed and showed all the windows and doors, this showed just the outline of the room. But we're really lucky because normally that room wouldn't have had to be on the extension plans at all, but the Navy took the opportunity to add some new posts and new girders to the existing room, and that's why that's the only reason we have this room, anything about this room on the plans. So how do we match it up with the photo? We don't have the windows and doors, but we do have the pillars, which look like the pillars, pillars on the photo, and we have the new girder, which looks like the girders. So far, this kind of looks like it could be that room. And there's one other point of correspondence between the photo and the record of the building. So on this plan, this is a section of the building, and it shows the original grade before the building was built was here. And then when the building was built, it was brought up to grade and a retaining wall built. So that's the existing wall. And on this plan, the existing wall goes up to here. And this jagged line says, well, it continues, but we don't have to draw it because we're only interested in the expansion and in the stairs we have to build. But the wall does continue. It's not on this plan, but it is on that map of all of Yerba Buena Island. And if we take this tiny piece of the map that had Building 97, we see that the retaining wall, the white is the map, and the retaining wall is shown on the map. So if we look at this officer seated, behind him we can look out the door, and behind his shoulder is something that we think looks like the retaining wall. So that's the other point of correspondence. That's all the evidence that we have, but we think that although there is no official record of where the court-martial took place, we believe that this evidence is enough to state that the Port Chicago trial took place in Building 97 on Yerba Buena Island, and the courtroom was right here. So, where does the footprint of Building 97 sit relative to the new construction? Well, just another piece of incredible luck. The courtroom is pretty much on this corner of the parking lot that will be built for Hilltop Park. And people will park here, they will walk to the crosswalk to take the ramp, and they will walk right by that corner. And when the developer surveys and lays out the parking lot, this photo is about 3 months old, We hope they will also take the 1940 map that Ryan McPherson from National Archives gave us and tell us exactly where the building and the courtroom were. But in the meantime, we note that this spot, everything above the sidewalk, is a parcel that may be eventually developed for a hotel. And the museum feels that because of the importance of this place in the history of San Francisco and in the struggle against racism, this site needs to be marked and honored. We understand that eventual development may require future changes, but we would welcome a discussion on what to do right now. And we have one possible concept. We envision 3 simple elements that could easily be moved to accommodate future development. The first is a wayside sign so that people walking down the parking lot and onto the crosswalk will see that something of historic importance happened right here. And then as they go up to the park, up on top, they can learn a lot more about it. The second element is some kind of memorial to the Port Chicago 50. For example, this boulder with a bronze plaque with their names on it. And an American flag flying to honor the Port Chicago 50 sailors at what we now know is the spot on which they were unjustly tried and convicted of mutiny 78 years ago. Thank you, and this concludes our report.